All right, we have a chance right now. We have an opportunity to hear from our gubernatorial candidates who are going to be talking about how they can build a knowledge-based economy in Idaho. So that's kind of the platform of how we want to do that, so you can kind of hear from them. I want to introduce Lieutenant Governor Brad Little. Brad has been somebody that's working for several years. He's the 42nd current Lieutenant Governor of the state of Idaho. And he's held that position with Governor Otter. Prior to doing that, he was in the Idaho Senate from 2001 to 2009. He's actually sitting over here right next to President Chuck Staben. Thank you, President Staben from University of Idaho, where Brad went and got a ag business degree and grew up on a ranch up in Emmett. We're very thankful to have Brad come and speak to us today. Brad Little.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I just told Russell I was in Menlo Park last week, and I saw the traffic and I saw the expensive home prices, so I'm a little aware of that. But I'm just briefly going to talk about my experience here in Idaho, and Russell's talk bared a lot of that out. You know, the companies that built this state, built this community, you know, before the advent of a series of ones and zeros, were disruptors. The great companies that are out there, Morrison Knudsen and Albertsons, every one of those companies that started with a very, very humble beginnings were disruptors. You know, the first big grocery stores and supermarkets were a child of Joe Albertson. The construction of big, big projects, dams all over the world, were a result of Harry Morrison and the people that built Morrison Knudsen. Trust joists absolutely revolutionized how we build, how we make fabricated timber. Over and over, that's been the story of Idaho. A little company that started here, where both of their founders are very renowned here in the valley. Learned Man was one of the first. Kevin and Gary started in the software business for banks in a field that was absolutely revolutionary, and that was before HP came here. When HP came, I was fortunate enough to serve on a board with Ray Smelik, who was the manager and kind of the godfather of HP coming into the valley. And I'll never forget meeting Ray at the airport somewhere. We're traveling somewhere. He had this deal about this big, and it was a disk drive that I think maybe has half the memory of my phone now. That company did a lot here, because what that company did was really planted the seed for a lot of the technology companies that came after it. When you talk about companies that fail, my wife was one of our friends from Emmett was a big investor in Extended Systems when it got started. And my wife loved it so much that she held the stock all the way up and all the way down. So I remember that. I remember that disruption. But out of Extended Systems, we got some incredible talent here in this valley. And today, you know, obviously what Micron did, cloud power engineers over in Haley, what Matt did, I drove down Eagle Road today. You're going to have to build a bigger parking lot out there. You don't have enough space out there at T-Sheets today. But last Saturday, I was up in Coeur d'Alene at a company called Rohini, and I love this. They're building the robots in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. They're going to go to Asia to mass produce electronics gear for all over the world. How good can that be that in Idaho, we have people in Idaho that are designing and building the robots. They're going to be creating what's going to be sold as consumer products all over the world. In my current job, I co-chair the leadership in nuclear energy. And of course, that's given me an opportunity to spend a lot of time over in southeast Idaho in all those great companies and with all those great scientists that are doing work on our energy problems. And of course, obviously, it's the lab, it's the nuclear lab, but they do a lot of other energy. And of course, one of their big assignments over there perhaps their biggest one is what they're doing in protecting the cybersecurity of our utilities. Not only utilities in the United States, but utilities all over the world. And the governor was generous and appointed me as chairman of the Cyber Task Force. I know my college professors would go, "What the hell do you know about cyber?" And they would have been right. But that was a big learning experience. And the fact that there is so much exposure and so much surface area in state government and local government and utilities, and what we need to do there, we've got a plan, we're implementing in the state, but more importantly, in Idaho, from a cyber standpoint, we have to protect your data, our citizens, our residents, the people that do business with the state of Idaho. And that is a constant battle. And as a result of that, here at Boise State and up at Dr. Buck's campus up at Coeur d'Alene and at Idaho State, we've got a new class of cyber warriors that are being developed in Idaho, and that's incredibly important as we go forward. One of the things that I've always been interested in, I used to teach business to high school kids. We ran a program called Business Week, and one of the things I learned from the entrepreneurs who talked there was about, you know, in the technology area, what do you do to protect intellectual property? So in 2014, I sponsored legislation. We're actually one of the first 2 states to go out, and that ecosystem that Russell was talking about, what do we do to protect your intellectual property? What do we do particularly to protect you what are commonly called as patent trolls? And I'm proud that Idaho was the 2nd state to implement that legislation. There's other states that have done it since then, and we keep encouraging the federal government, which is probably where it ought to be in the first place. But we're trying to do all we can in Idaho to protect intellectual property so that the entrepreneurs that are here can be assured that if it goes into a state court system, you've got the maximum protection available. I am from the old world. I'm an agriculturalist. I know that dairies are getting mechanized and potato plants are getting mechanized. I haven't figured out any way a robot's going to build a fence up there in those hills up there. But if one of you guys has that idea, I'm all in. But I've seen what's happened in Idaho. And what's happened most recently, I was surprised the governor didn't talk about the story in Bloomberg that talked about the incredible revolution that we've had in Idaho, where all these tech companies all over the state have sprouted up and created that successful ecosystem that Russell talked about. And, you know, I remember when extended systems kind of faded out, there wasn't a lot of landing pads if you were in the software business or the hardware business here in the Boise Valley. Now there's lots of landing pads. As that cost of housing in Seattle and San Jose continues to escalate, as their problems continue to escalate, I want Idaho, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho Falls, Twin, the Boise Valley to be a landing place, particularly for those kids that left Idaho for whatever reason. I tell everybody this job that I'm applying for right now, the most important thing to me is that we create an atmosphere here in Idaho to where our kids that are here and the kids that left have the best possible opportunity to come home. There's no industry that's more adept at that than the technology industry. It's the fastest growing industry. It's akin to everything else we do. My nephew today is down at Trailhead writing code for St. Luke's. And that is such a pathway in all those different fields. That's what we have to have if we want to have that bait to get our kids back. What else do we need to do? We obviously have to have a robust K-12 and improving and a dynamic and a modernized K-12 system. Those engineers, those people we want to be here, they're educated and they want to know that there's going to be a good public school system for them and their children. And if you want to have bait, have a good K-12 system right here, because that's how you're going to get them to stay and those that left to come back. You got to have career technicals so that the technical jobs, and we had an all-day conference about that yesterday, and there's a lot of great things going on in that area. You know, apprenticeships, internships, what we're doing, starting at the K-12 system, to where they've got more opportunity, to where they can start feeding their families when they get out of high school, and then go on and get further training later. And then obviously what we need to do is continue to support higher education. But we have to continue to adapt higher education to the rapidly changing world out there. We can't have those same programs that don't change for generations. We have to be adaptive to what's taking place in the world, and we can do that. But just finally, I think, and Russell alluded to it, the most important thing is we got to protect our quality of life here. We've got to have an infrastructure to where if you go to rural Idaho, you can have the internet connectivity you need. The state is always paying for roads or sidewalks. I advocate that we shouldn't put in a new road or sidewalk without putting in a minimum conduit, but we probably ought to be laying dark fiber there, so whatever happens in the future, we don't have to tear up roads to put in that kind of internet capacity. We have to do other things to inspire broader internet capacity, because those people that are in San Jose and Seattle want to move out. They'd love to move to Boise, but a lot of them might want to move to Mackey or Donnelly or Council or Orofino. They won't do that there if we don't have connectivity, and that's one of the things we have to do going forward. I'm always delighted to talk about this subject, but I'm even more delighted to learn about it, and I probably should be sitting there listening instead of up here talking. Thank you very much.